Love it or hate it, Oshinoko Episode 6 brought a very difficult topic up for discussion, and a lot of people usually shy away from this topic because obviously it's kind of taboo. In a lot of spaces, it seems taboo to discuss this, or people don't really want to think too heavily about it. But one of the big aspects that Oshinoko has been doing ever since the first episode aired was talking about topics that obviously are very toxic and have led to the deaths of people or just very unfortunate situations, and that's just what Akasaka has been doing with Oshinoko since literally its very inception, since chapter 1 of the story. And so obviously episode 6 got very real and hit a lot of people emotionally, and you know things got very dark and emotional when literally the final frame of the episode is this, basically giving a hotline, a phone number, and saying if you need help, please call this number. It pretty much highlights just the severity of the situation and just how dark this episode got and just how a few messages from people online can eventually turn into hundreds to thousands, can eventually turn into something that is just outright horrible and force someone into a corner to where they feel like they have no way out. And as I discussed in my episode review, and I'm going to rehash what I said, a lot of people online, when they're posting online, either through, let's say, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube comments, wherever it may be, when you're posting stuff online, people have this feeling of anonymous nature, to where they have this username, they have this profile image, be it an anime girl, an anime guy, or whatever it may be, their favorite sports team. People have these profile pictures, they have this name that necessarily isn't them, it's their persona online, this mask, so to speak. And obviously, when people type things online, they don't really take too much to think about, or too long to think about what effects these comments could have to a person online, because people put a barrier between themselves and others online because they feel like, they can get away with anything because it's the internet. What matters? It doesn't matter at all. That's what people feel and what they think. And there's been often topics about this where people are like, oh, why don't you just shut off your screen, or why don't you turn everything off? Why don't you go outside? Whatever. And that is just, it's just, that doesn't tackle the whole subject matter. There's so much more to online bullying and what it can do to someone, especially if their entire career or their entire, I guess, business is associated with online. It's not as simple as just turn things off. And obviously, if your entire career is based online, for instance, like Akane and her being an actress and everything is technically about her image to a lot of degrees, it causes it to where if this goes wrong, if she has a bad image and people are constantly harassing her, all of her job opportunities, everything she worked for since the very beginning of her life pretty much comes crumbling down, and there literally is no future for her, which obviously backed her into a corner, and this is what led to the events of episode 6 of Oshinoko. But basically, to kind of give a little bit more context to why I'm making this video, there was a news article that I was made aware of earlier this morning that is a Japanese article, and it's making waves in, like, the Japanese community, and now it's starting to get into the West, and people are talking about it in the West. And what this article is about is a grieving mother that is very upset with the latest episode of Oshinoko. It's just a very touchy subject to talk about, and I understand the plight of the mother. As someone that has lost their brother to suicide, I understand why the mother would be upset, especially if, like, the events that happens in Oshinoko is truly based on her daughter. I could fully understand why there would be some anger or being upset. I understand that completely. So, this is a very touchy subject, but it does need to be talked about. So, to get into it, basically, for a very long time now, in the Oshinoko community, it has been believed that Akane's entire story, at least what happened with episode 6, is based on a true story, Hana Kimura. Now, this has never been 100% confirmed or denied to my awareness, but obviously fans have went out of their way to kind of speculate that it's definitely not related by any means. It's just a unfortunate circumstance. Now, to give clarity here, before this article came out and I really started diving into it, I was under the impression that it was based on a true story. I didn't know too much about it, but I always assumed it was. And I was like, it makes a lot of sense with what Akasaka's trying to do with Oshinoko, really give to light, the darkness of the entertainment industry, to showbiz, to just what online can do. It felt right. It felt like, yeah, that's probably true, maybe. And I feel like everybody can collectively agree before they really dived into this topic and watching this video, probably could think, yeah, it makes sense. It would be based on a true story. And here's the thing. Diving into it, some of the fans have basically shown the serialization date of the first episode of Oshinoko and in its magazine, which started in April 23rd, 2020, and the death of the daughter happened on May 23rd the same year, so a month later, so to speak. And obviously, from my awareness of what is being stated here, this means the first chapter. First episode references first chapter, and the events of episode 6, I believe, takes place around like chapter 20 or 18 or something, so that's many weeks, maybe months later, after the events of, the daughter's death. And obviously, it makes sense why people would try to connect. Maybe this is what Akasaka was doing, kind of telling this story in their own way. Or maybe it was just, like I said, it was just circumstances, and it led to just unfortunate timing, and it was accidental to begin with. And let's explain that one. Akasaka, or just any mangaka in general, when they're writing a series, when they're planning out what they want to do with their story, there obviously has to be a lot of rough drafts. There has to be probably some form of overarching structure to the story and the arcs that they're going to go through that is in some way already planned out. You could definitely consider that. Yeah, I think everybody can collectively agree when someone is writing something, even if they don't know how maybe it ends, they have a rough idea of what they kind of want to do with some characters that are going to be very important to the plot of their story. And in this case, Akane obviously is a very important character, and it would make a lot of sense that maybe the events surrounding Akane was already pre-established before the events of Hana Kimura. But obviously, thanks to just everything, that happened, it seemed like that's what Akasaka was doing, and was just, basically telling, Hana's story. Who knows? But from, like I said, my understanding, it's never been truly denied, and if it has, I can't read Japanese, so do show me a link or whatever if it has been denied, but I'm assuming if it hasn't been denied, the reason for it is because it's just better not to say anything, because that just opens up a whole legal hellhole that you really just don't want to open up. So, yeah, but anyways, the point of the matter is that you have a mother that is grieving and very upset and does not like the events that kind of opened up the old wounds of her daughter's death, and it's legitimately sad, and once again, I feel like it makes a lot of sense why she'd be upset, because obviously this probably triggered some form of PTSD or trauma in her seeing this, because people are probably also asking, okay, why is she complaining now after all of these years? Well, the reason for that, okay, I know people don't want to believe this, but Oshinoko's manga may have been popular, but it wasn't as popular as a lot of things. You wouldn't just instantly know every single manga in Japan. And so because of this, most likely the mother dealing with everything, trying to drown out the media, and after the death of her daughter, probably had no idea, just didn't want to hear it anymore, and just completely zoned out, didn't want to know anything about anything. And obviously, since Oshinoko has been making a lot of waves, and let's not try to deny it, it's become very popular, it makes sense why maybe the mother would find out about it now, after all these years. So, when you just think about everything that is going on, like I said, it's very unfortunate. But does this mean that this topic, theoretically, should not be discussed? I say no, I think it should be. And let me explain. Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm just going to go on a limb, okay? I'm not saying this is true or not, but let's hypothetically say Akasaka did base it, okay, on Hana Kimura, or someone else, okay, anyone, because let's be honest, there's so many, and it sounds callous, but there's so many, which is sad, it's heartbreaking to say, but there's so many that just end like that. Like I said, I've experienced that as well. My brother, died, and because of this, it's just it's a story that happens, and it's a story that does need to be talked about, and I feel like the more people that are made aware of just how awful some things can be, could lead to change. And I feel like subjects like this, even though they seem taboo and we shouldn't discuss them, should be discussed because they are very important for enlightening people and allowing people to know just the effects of what some things could do to people and push them in a corner to where there is just no way out. And so, my opinion here, I feel like Akasaka, regardless, shouldn't feel bad about writing what they wrote. I feel like it's very important for the entire world, and if there's any series I'm very happy that has gotten very popular, it is Oshinoko, because I think that it is very important for all these topics to really have light shined on them, for people to realize what really is toxic and what is going on here. Now, that's just my 2 cents on it. Obviously, feel free to disagree, but that's just my opinion on the matter. I feel like these hard, difficult discussions should always happen, and we should not try to act like they shouldn't happen. We should discuss them because they're very important and they could potentially save people's lives. That's my 2 cents on the matter. So, overall, once again, I feel for the mother. I really do. And I understand why she would feel hurt, and regardless if, it's based on it or not, it's still sad. It is. Nothing's going to change that. But, I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi outs.